happy to answer any and all. Bring the lights up. We'll roll with that one. Yeah.
What type of design do you focus on at 37 Signals? It seems like a lot of the work that you do here is much different from what at least I've seen with 37 Signals with all the different apps.
Totally. So I actually just recently started at 37 Signals. I've been there for a month and a half, and my role there is more of a public-facing designer. So I'm working on Basecamp.com, the marketing site. And one of the big reasons I was hired there is to help 37 Signals tell stories about our products. We have a very strong and clear way of messaging everything. It's very simple, it's very straightforward. One of the big things that I'm being brought on for is how do we tell the stories about you guys using Basecamp? How do we put a little more artistic flair, I guess, in a very loose way of saying it, to the 37 Signals identity. We don't really have a strong identity as who we are as a company. We just have very simple, awesome software. So we're trying to own our voice and wrap it up. And so my job is to help figure out what does 37 Signals look like to you guys.
Thanks.
Saw a couple of hands. Yep.
Who's your favorite teacher?
My favorite teacher. I have a few of them, and I really do think like the instructors you have in college or whoever you have, your mentors, can have a profound impact on how you pan out in the rest of your career. I had one instructor named Chris in school, and he was really great about not telling us that things were right or wrong, but just how to try something different. And I think my favorite teachers, they never said, this looks bad, or this is great, or they never said, I like this. They said, how can you make this better? And so when I also teach in Chicago now, and that's one thing that I try to emulate is, I'm not here to tell you if this is right or this is wrong, because this can be completely subjective. How else can you explore this? So yeah, I had a few teachers who really tried opening doors for me instead of telling me that their way was the right way and the only way. Yep.
I'm not a designer, so I hope this isn't too basic a question, but do you try and have a narrative to, like a lot of your design? Do you try and have even more than just communicating a simple idea, do you try and have like a whole story behind it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's like a huge reason why I was hired at 37 Signals is I'm very story focused. And one thing that we did all the time at Threadless was we had sales, and they were always different. They were different stories. Sometimes it was 90s summer vibe. Sometimes it was a bad car salesman vibe. And there was always stories behind every sale we did. We turned our warehouse manager into a goofy old car salesman. So a lot of that dictates how we design. And that was in the first time in my career I used hot paint and Comic Sans on purpose. So yeah, there's always, and just as a designer in my own philosophies, I think you always should have a narrative in your design, otherwise you're kind of just decorating. You should have a point to what you're doing, and you should have a general voice in what you're trying to make. So yeah, there's always a narrative. Short story. That's the tweet version. Yeah. Anyone else? Is it like, oh yeah.
How do you generally start with your work? Like, do you do sketches, or do you just go right to making whatever idea you have in your head?
I actually always start with words, and it helps me because I need to know what I'm trying to say before I try to visualize it. And if you don't know what you're trying to say, you're going to have a hell of a time trying to design around it. And that's one thing that's incredibly important at 37 Signals is that everybody hired, whether you're a designer or a support person or a programmer, you have excellent writing skills. And it's a heavy basis on how people get hired, is how well can you write. Because clients don't understand Helvetica, typesetting, line height. They don't give a shit about any of that. They want to know, is my brand being told in the right way? And so I always start with words. I sketch out concepts that I know are important, and then I, from those concepts might leak, retro vintage sign or highly polished laser cut sign. I always start with words. I sketch with words first, and I don't know if that makes me weird or not, but that's how I roll, man. Yeah.
Did you really only spend 15 minutes on those samples that you showed us?
Absolutely. Not a lie. It's like I realized I do some of my best work when I have a time limit. So a lot of people are like, fuck, I hate deadlines. And I'm like, cool, I have a deadline. Now I know when I have to get this shit done. Because if you give me a project 3 months in advance, I'm not going to do it until like the week it's due because I don't want to noodle around with it for 3 months. That's boring to me, and I like moving quickly, and I like shifting my ideas around. And I think the advantage of working quickly and working with a time limit, it forces you to just execute, and it forces you to use your skills. We're all designers, we're all illustrators. We know we're good at doing something, so when you have a time limit, you're forced to just do it. There's no dilly-dallying, you just do it. So yeah, I actually totally recommend you all try a tight time limit project for yourself. It's really interesting seeing what comes out of it. And this week even, I forgot my laptop charger when I went to the coffee shop, and I'm like, oh my God, this is the worst day of my life. But then I realized, nope, I only have 2 hours to get this work done because then my laptop dies. So it actually forced me to shut off Twitter, Facebook, and everything. Said, I gotta use this juice until this project's done. So I don't know, I'm weird into these weird restrictions, I guess. And I think that's what helps make us designers, is restrictions. If we didn't have restrictions, we wouldn't be designers. We have to run within a box and solve a specific problem. So I think time is just one part of that restriction for me. Yep.
You talked about working in a job where you had like 8 management levels that you had to deal with, and then now you talked about working in Threadless too. Can you talk about, I guess, somewhere where you had to work where you had those strong brand constraints that you had to work under that were hard to break out of and still be creative, I guess?
At Threadless?
At Threadless, I don't know how much of a brand constraint you have there, but just I guess in general, has that been an issue at all, or is that something you've broken away from?
Well, I mean, I guess the overarching thing is I quit that job where I had constraints. So that's not an easy thing to tell anybody. It's like, dude, just quit your job. It's easy, and then just work at Threadless. Like, it's obviously not realistic. But even at Threadless, the more we did partnerships with people, the more I did have a lot of pushback. Like, no, Will the Fair will only let you put their logo this way, or so-and-so only wants. Disney was super hard to work with because they had to say Disney Interactive & Co. established whatever, and like, what? Nobody gives a fuck about that. They just want to buy a T-shirt. So yeah, working with restrictions in that sense was a challenge. But again, I'm the type of person where I'm like, give me a challenge and I'll prove you wrong. Even at the ad agency though, just to give a more honest answer, the brand I worked on heavily was Harley-Davidson, and my life really consisted of Trade Gothic Bold Condensed number 20 in orange. I still remember that. But what's fun was that now my job has become this ultimate puzzle. How can I make something new every day? Because this is why we get paid as designers, to try to make Harley feel fresh and different every day. I wouldn't have stuck with the job for as long as I did if it was just production work, just saving files. And I think that's the thing I can try to recommend to anybody who's kind of in that stuck mode, is that if the work sucks, it's probably your fault because you aren't thinking further on how you can do it. You can say, oh, my manager gave me this, my art director told me to do these things. Well, you're just listening to your art director, and you're a designer, you have your own creative capabilities. And that's something I'm still learning and practicing every day. Jason Fried will say, you know what, this marketing site is cool, maybe try doing this. That's cool, now try doing this. And I'm just listening to him the whole time when I realize, wait, I know what it really should look like, maybe I should also try doing this. So learning how to appease, your art director or the client is one thing, but showing them what you think is the right thing is equally important, because you can do the thing that a client hired you to do, but you can also offer them something much more valuable, something much more interesting, and that's where the real value is you as a designer comes from, is they hired you for your expertise, not your production skills. So I think you should turn that into a challenge and see where you can go with it. Any other questions? Friday beer? Yeah. Well, I mean, that's all I got, unless anyone else has anything. Yay, beer!